Hello friends, KillerBee here, and I've got my traveling buddy Greg Bunce with me, which means we're on the Escanaba and Lake Superior Railroad. And in this video we're going to explore up to Ontonagon. This is part 2 of our trip along the inactive Escanaba and Lake Superior rail line from Channing, Michigan to Ontonagon. Hopefully you have seen part 1 from Channing up to Sidnaw, but if not, at the end I will have a link to it. We are now resuming our exploration at Sidnaw and heading to Ontonagon. Although the main intent is to look the line over, we will also take in the roadside attractions along the way, plus get into a little history. So, let's go. After the railroad consolidation settled down, Sidnaw was the location of the crossing of the Duluth, South Shore and Atlantic, the DSS&A, and the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul, known as the St. Paul. The DSS&A line became Sioux Line and eventually Wisconsin Central. The portion west of Sidnaw was abandoned, and the line eastward from Sidnaw to Nestoria was acquired by E&LS. The St. Paul became the Milwaukee Road, and in 1980 the E&LS took over. The two railroads paralleled each other coming into town from the east. Here is an undated shot of the station at Sidnaw looking west down the DSS&A. To the left or south of the station is the St. Paul, and across the street is the interlocking tower protecting their crossing. Another shot looks east and shows the St. Paul side of the depot. Fast forward to the mid-70s, and we see an eastbound Sioux Line train and cars on the interchange. The tower had been replaced by gates tied into the signals. And in 2003, a shot of a train on the Nestoria branch just east of Sidnaw. So, what does it look like today?
The depot was right here. It was built in 1909 to replace another depot that was on the other side. It was a wooden building on the other side of the street over here, a lot smaller.
And the one on this side was the Union Depot?
Yes, it was Union Station. The waiting room even had a fireplace in it. It closed in, the agent retired in 1972, and they tore the depot down shortly after that. In Milwaukee did. It was a beautiful building.
Outline of the depot foundation. Oh my gosh. Greg points out the DSS&A North Transfer Track, the DSS&A Main, and the Milwaukee Road Main. Some things haven't changed much. We start walking west along the Milwaukee Road Main past the station site. Across the road we stop first at the signal box. Next onto the foundation for the water tank. It replaced earlier ones and was unique in that it served both railroads. The DSS&A home signal for eastbound trains is seen on the left. The old tool and motor car house still remains.
Valuation maps, 1918 shows a coal dock. That would be a long thing. But this with this concrete foundation, I wonder if they have an elevator here.
Greg explains train operations at one time.
We met here, the train when we leave Ontonagon, we meet the train from Channing here in Sidnaw and swap trains, swap cars. Well, what they do is the Channing train just shove their train up the Nestoria branch and we just swap engines or whatever, and they take off.
But that's not all. There are many non-railroad scenic highlights of Sidnaw. Near the tracks is a classic water pump, which still works. When we were heading to the Y, we noticed that the Historical Society was open. Greg was all excited and we promptly parked and wanned in, only to find out that they weren't really open. They were packing up to move around the corner to a new site in the former United Methodist Church. We next spun by this, a truncated guard tower. A surviving remnant of when Sidnaw was the site of a German internment camp during World War II. Camp Sidnaw was originally a civilian conservation corps work camp and later ski training site for the U.S. Army ski troops. German prisoners of war were sent to it as the local logging industry had lost many men to the war effort and requested that POWs be sent to Upper Michigan for labor. This is a shot of the camp then. We head west out of town on M28 and stop at the Y, visiting all three legs. One boxcar is stranded there, as is a pile of logs. And we see the paint ore loading site. Strangely, it appears some crossing circuit work had been done recently. Hey, a shoulder plate.
Don't touch the base of the rail. The shoulder holds the rail.
Oh,
and you spike the plate down.
Leaving Sidnaw, we turn up Forest Road 2020, and where it comes alongside the track, we hop out for a look. Milepost 364 is laying alongside the right-of-way. Hopefully no one will steal it. There have been some other cool things on our trip I have not shown in this video to prevent their theft. The soil here is sandy, good for growing blueberries, and the subgrade of the railroad here is mostly sand. A little walk south takes us down to where the original alignment over Sidnaw Creek diverged off. We continue north on Forest Road 2020 and cross the track. Back in 2017, Greg shot the 501 and 1344 here, bringing storage cars south. Continuing on, we cross the track again on Forest Road 1300, Connors Tower Road. Eventually we arrive at Frost, not to be confused with a location in Lower Michigan, also called Frost. At one time, the Frost Shingle Company Railroad connected here. Besides the siding and the remains of a section gang tool house or warming shed, there are other items of note. The siding has a compromise joint for 65-pound rail. Spikes have cool imprints on their heads. And continuous splice tie plates are found in place. They basically are a combined tie plate and joint bar that extend across multiple ties. From Frost, we go up to Pori Road and head toward Pori. Along the way is the site of another CCC camp that was used to house German POWs. Before getting to Pori, we go south on Forest Road 1100, which takes us to where the Porterfield and Ellis Logging Railroad and the Von Platten Fox Company Railroad connected to the St. Paul, about a mile south of Pori, giving this location multiple names. And it has wild strawberries.
Okay, we're standing at, actually it's the road that divides Britain, which is the station on this side, also formerly known as the Porterfield and Ellis Logging Railroad connection to the St. Paul. And in front of me was originally spur 296, and it was later, the name was changed to Fox after the Milwaukee Road built a Y here to connect to the Van Patten Fox Lumber Company logging railroad that ran east of here. About a half a mile, a quarter of a mile this way, there's a water tank. Britain water tank. I can't remember. The creek is Levesque Creek, I think it is. Anyway, we'll be going down there and seeing what's left. You don't have any service yet.
Okay, we found the tank, and this was relocated from Pori, you said. We go back to Pori Road and head to Pori. There is a station sign at Pori, but it is a reproduction, according to Greg. One eclectic house sits by the crossing. Greg said a depot was here, but closed in 1933. There was also a section house and a coal chute. The Northland Lumber Company's logging railroad connected here and had a two-stall engine house. Tell me what we're looking at here, Greg.
Right here, we're looking at the piggyback ramp from the Ontonagon paper mill. After the mill closed, they were scrapping the mill out. The railroad had to get their stuff out of the mill. Got a crane, picked up the ramp, set it on the car, and had it all chained down. And we had a speed limit of 10 miles an hour on the car. Or I just set it out and just leave it here for the time being. That was in 2012, 13 years ago. It's been sitting here. But anyway, it was all chained down. Came up here, within 2 weeks, the chains had all disappeared. Somebody'd stolen all the chains off of it.
2 miles up the track is Russo. Not much here, a siding, and just down the road, the Russo Bar. We head up Russo Road to McKeever. Back in 1994, I shot the southbound train out of Ontonagon, south of McKeever. McKeever is just a spot on the map now, but once it was the connection with the Copper Range Railroad, which ceased operations in 1972. We see here a shot taken by the Copper Range Vice President of Operations, Charles Sincock, of a meet between the Milwaukee Road and Copper Range passenger trains circa 1945. The Copper Range actually called this location Range Junction, whereas the St. Paul called it McKeever or McKeever Junction. My wife and I returned in October of 2025 and walked a little ways up the Copper Range right-of-way, now a trail. A pile of old ties and logs was still alongside the right-of-way. A short distance up the track is the trestle over Adventure Creek. Here's a northbound train in 1994. Just past the creek is the siding and loading track at the one-time pulpwood yard. The railroad called this location Mass, as opposed to the nearby community of Mass City. Pretty desolate now, a far cry from when Greg photographed it when the railroad was still running. And here is a then and now of the log loading track, plus a look back at the depot, and 2 shots from the 1960s of a southbound Milwaukee Road train from Ontonagon passing the depot. Adding to the melancholy atmosphere are a number of old vehicles and assorted machines rusting away across the street from the log yard entrance. Although we didn't stop there, Riddle Junction was next to the west. This is where the Mineral Range line from Keweenaw Bay connected. When we made this trip in May of 2025, the end of the rails was southwest of Rockland. Getting there looked simple on the map, but we considered the road impassable and hiked in. On our way, we went past traces of National Mine. It had been an underground copper mine consisting of 7 shafts, closing in 1893. After about an 8/10 of a mile walk, we got to the railhead and thimbleberries. We retraced our steps back to our car and headed into Rockland. The local topography forced the railroad to swing around the town to the west. My 1994 visit captured a scene more enjoyable than that of today. Just around the curve here at the next road crossing was the depot, seen courtesy of the Ontonagon County Historical Society collection. In May of 2012, Greg captured the sad task of the track west of Rockland being removed. Well, it is now 5:30 as we head out of Rockland, and we still have to look around Ontonagon, then head home. Finally, we arrive at Ontonagon, the start, or end, of U.S. Highway 45. In 1880, the Ontonagon and Brule River Railroad surveyed a route from Ontonagon to Rockland. Actual construction began in 1881 with the first train run on July 4th, 1882. The locomotive and cars had been brought into Ontonagon by boat. It was hoped that Ontonagon would become an ore transloading point, with the Chicago and Northwestern building up from the Gogebic Range and bringing ore in. Instead, Ashland became the point. The O&B was conveyed to the Milwaukee and Northern in 1890, who in 1893 was acquired by the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul. The St. Paul, as it was called, became the Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific, or Milwaukee Road. In 1927 or 1928, depending on your source, as a result of a bankruptcy reorganization. In 1980, the Escanaba and Lake Superior took over operation of the line. Greg provided me a sketch of the trackage at the end, best his memory allowed, which was the basis of this map. We'll start here and face the lake. In 2005, Greg shot the 3-track yard. Fast forward to today. The former 3-track yard is on the left, and the right-of-way going off to the right went past the depot and former engine house. Headed up the right-of-way to the right, we come to the depot. It is a sad sight now compared to my visit in 1994. And a shot courtesy of the Ontonagon County Historical Society. Greg captured the inside of it in 2003 when it was still manned. Turning around 180 degrees, we look toward the former engine house site and see what it looked like in 2013, in 1982, and years ago. Continuing toward the lake is another 2013 view. The line went up to the shipyard site on Lake Superior. In the mid-1980s, the shipyard was building pontoons for the Navy and shipping them out by rail on 89-foot flat cars. We see here a shot Greg made in 1986. In the rear is the ill-fated attempt to construct a tug and barge for Lake Michigan Cross Lake rail service. I believe specifically for the Ann Arbor Railroad operation. Let's go back to where we started and head the other way. Channing is straight ahead. Diverging off to the right is the line going over the river to the mill. At one time, this line continued on to White Pine. There is a Y here, with this being one of 2 legs that come together on the bridge. The switch stand had the target up extra high so it could be seen from the train over the bridge work. It is missing now, but we can see it in the shot Greg made from the Sioux 700 on July 25, 2003. Here are 2 shots of the train heading to the mill in 1994. Mill operations began in 1919 or 1921, depending on your source. The Ontonagon County Historical Society has a display of each operator with lots of cool images. A succession of operators ran the mill until it was closed in 2009 under Smurfit Stone. The mill was the main reason for the railroad still being in Ontonagon, and the last train departed town on September 15th, 2011. Continuing on, here is a 2002 view of the backside of the mill taken by Greg, and a map he drew of the mill trackage at the end, best he can recollect. And did you know the ELS provided intermodal service down to Green Bay from a ramp located on mill property? Rolls of pulpboard were moved down to Green Bay and scrap paper brought back up. Unfortunately, the service got up and running not long before the mill shut down. The mill had its own switch engine. For a while, they had one on display at the mill. It was lettered CIC for Champion International Corporation. In later years, they used an ELS locomotive. Here are two Greg Bunce photos. He explained ELS 101 and 202 at Ontonagon, August of 1992. These were being used as the switchers at the mill. We swapped one out for the other. I can't remember which one was swapped for which that day, but we would swap them out when they needed their 92-day inspections. So, what does it look like today? Hate to do this to you, but everything is pretty much gone, leveled, flattened. Believe it or not, some of the railroad south of the Y was rebuilt in 2005. Trackage had to be moved due to the construction of a new M64 highway bridge over the river that needed part of the old right-of-way. Then, in August of 2013, we see the progress tearing up the line. Here is an aerial shot of Ontonagon the Historical Society has. Unfortunately, it is undated. Well, that's it. I do have to give Ontonagon a plug. The County Historical Society has an extensive artifact display, including a railroad corner and a library that will keep you busy for a while. When Greg and I were in town, we know that everybody was at the VFW Hall for Friday fish fry. And on a visit with my wife, we enjoyed dinner and drinks at Roxy's Bar and Grill and breakfast at Sill's Cafe. Our purpose was to visit Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park and take in the fall colors from Lake of the Clouds overlook. But despite driving through wonderful colors on our way up, everything here was still green. Go figure. Well, that's our trip. You may subscribe here and also link to the first video covering from Channing to Sidnaw. Thank you. Bye for now.